Part 47. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 462. Chapter 462, Letter from Kyoto. Sometimes she thought, she might as well take him back. But on the way back, she finally found out his identity. It turned out that he was one of the owners of the winery. At this time, Wang Yuyan didn't know why, but she felt very excited, as if God was playing tricks on her. No matter what she thinks, the people in the village have a good impression of the daughter-in-law Liang brought back. The little girl is quiet, answers all questions, is very polite, and makes people feel more comfortable when getting along with her. Actually, people in the village don't know that this kind of thing is called temperament. Aunt Mei Lian saw that everyone was so curious about her daughter-in-law. She was afraid that everyone would scare her daughter-in-law away. If Grandma He hadn't come forward, she would not have let these people in. Third aunt, you see, Yuyan has just come to the village. Why don't you let Liang take her around, Aunt Mei Lian said to Grandma He and the others with a look of supplication. Grandma He pointed at Aunt Mei Lian and laughed, okay, let the young couple take a tour of our village. With the third grandma speaking, who dares or can refuse to listen? And Liang was very grateful and stepped forward to hold his girlfriend's hand and took her directly out of the house. As for where to go, it's better than home. Mei Shui felt bored when she saw people leaving, so she walked home. He Ans and his three sons had a lot of fun at home, and they brought back a game console. The four of us sitting on the sofa and having fun were having a lot of fun. Dad, please let me go. Xiaopeng lost again and immediately begged for mercy. No, Dad, you can't let it go. If you do, you have to give us double the red envelope. Xiao Cheng yelled the most fiercely. Xiao also agreed with Xiaopeng's words, Dad, it's not impossible for you to give in. If you don't say double the red envelope, just give it the same amount as my wife. Hearing what his two sons said, Hians glared at them angrily, you are so beautiful, you still have the same amount as your wife gave you. That's more than twice as much. That's not possible. Don't even think about releasing water or anything like that. For his own personal money, he had to defeat these brats. When she came back, she saw her father and son playing games here. Mei Shui was very bored. The life without Xiaobai is really not fun. Since it was impossible to go up the mountain and there was nothing to do at home, Mei Shui walked over to Hians and sat down beside him, feeling a little bored. Watching them play games and learning that they were gambling, I immediately joined in. What a pity, she is good at fighting to make money, but playing games is really not her strong point. Hians made a lot of money, but Mei Shui lost it all. Xiaoxiu, why don't we stop playing? The car was really ugly, so Hians planned to stop it. But how could he wake up a gambler? Go away, I will definitely win. You brats, do you dare to play together? Compared to Hians, Mei Shui's determination was not that good. Of course, when the children heard that their mother was going to bet big, they were all more excited than anyone else. Even Hians couldn't hold them back. Mom, how about we bet on next year's living expenses? Xiaopeng said excitedly. There is no way, he is the poorest among the three people, and he often has no pocket money after buying the medicinal materials. Okay, if you can beat me, I will double the amount next year. Mei Shui was confident. Okay, Xiaopeng immediately started working alone with his mother. Xiao and Xiaocheng only felt that they were a step too late, and all the good things had been taken away by Xiaopeng. Everyone regretted it very much. So the two of them turned their attention to their father. Hians rolled his eyes at them, snorted, got up and left. Seeing this, they were disappointed. The showdown between Mei Shui and Xiaopeng will begin soon. There is no father or son in the casino. Mei Shui finally lost to Xiaopeng not long after the start. She pouted and said, Xiaopeng, are you focusing on the game? She lost in the game, but in reality she cannot lose. Looking at their mother's change of expression, the three of them immediately shook their heads. Why do the two of them want to help Xiaopeng? Once their mother convicts Xiaopeng, they will not end well. Mom, what are you talking about? I am number one in the whole grade. Xiao was the first to stand up and say. Then came Xiao Cheng, I have never fallen out of third place in the grade. Xiaopeng rolled his eyes, Mom, if you lose, you lose. Don't afford to lose. I am number one in the whole grade, Xiaopeng said very proudly. In terms of performance, he is very particular about it. I don't dare to lose my temper at all, because I am afraid that Mrs. Wu's homework will increase. Meixiu sighed. Her son was older and he didn't even know how to take care of her as his mother. He was very discouraged and said, Okay, I'll give it to you before school starts. If you lose, you have to admit it. Happy time is always short. And Yang called them in the first month and asked them to go to Kyoto as soon as possible. Because something happened. It seems that someone is interested in Bama village and plans to acquire it. And Yang is not very familiar with the old men. In addition, it is not convenient for the old men to come forward in many things, and they cannot control normal business competition. If you take care of it, something will definitely happen. After hanging up the phone, Mei Shui discussed with Hians about returning to Kyoto. It happened that the children were going to school in a few days. When Grandma He heard that she was leaving the village, she felt disappointed. She really wanted to stay a little longer, but Xiaoxiu and the others had something to do, so she couldn't delay them. The day after tomorrow, Grandma He set a time and said. Looking at Grandma's face of reluctance, Mei Shui and Hians felt very sad. Grandma, if you don't want to go back so soon, why not stay in the village for a while? And when the others are also at home, there were people watching at the winery, and they were not in a hurry for a few days. Mei Shui sat next to her grandma and comforted her. Grandma He shook her head, no, you have to go back sooner or later. It doesn't matter if you leave early or later anyway, we have to leave, so it's better to go back to Kyoto earlier so as not to delay the children's affairs. Madam, why don't we stay with you for a while and then go back when school starts? Xiao understood his wife's mood and said. Grandma He still shook her head, Madam knows that you have filial piety, she said, very pleased. But there are things to be busy with in Kyoto. There is such a big stall, so we can't let others take advantage of us. They knew these were Grandma's words to comfort them, and Mei Shui felt a little sad. If possible, she really wanted to take her grandma around more, or come to the village to stay longer. Mei Shui looked at Hians helplessly, but what could he do? In the end, the family decided to leave the village the day after tomorrow. As soon as the news spread, people came to the door soon. Whether it's true reluctance or fake reluctance, Hejia village is becoming more harmonious. After saying goodbye, the family asked and when to take them to Mingcheng. Let's fly directly to Kyoto. The time of the day is just right. We can arrive in Kyoto in the afternoon, and maybe we can make it in time for dinner. Don't stop voting. It's the last day at the end of the month. Let the author collect the votes and subscribe. Thank you all. End of this chapter. 80s, the farmer's wife is the boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 463. Chapter 463, being stared at by the people above. Grandma Jinghua and others felt a little disappointed after seeing their friends off. But after all, their lives are different, and it is impossible for them to stay in the village forever. They are very open-minded. Anwen and the others usually stay at home after the 15th day before returning to Kyoto. As soon as he returned to Kyoto and settled down with his family, Hians drove Mei Shui to Bama village in his car the next day. The old man and the others are not here during the Chinese New Year, they are all in Kyoto. They did not go to the old man and the others immediately because they knew that they could not ask for help for everything. Solve it yourself when you can. After getting off the car, He Anyong had been waiting at the village gate early. When he saw the people coming, a smile immediately appeared on his face. Quick, it's very cold outside, let's go back inside first. He Anyong gathered his clothes and said. Mei Shui and Hians came over and brought New Year gifts to several people working here. It's not something expensive, just some gift bags. Everyone has a share. He Anyong, the administrator of Bama village, is good, but there are also some people in charge, and he can't handle it all by himself. Let's go. After closing the car door, He Ans and He Anyong walked into the village carrying their things. Tell me, what's going on? Logically speaking, no one would come looking for trouble. Well, speaking of this, it is also our own fault who made our place so good. There are many people who like it. He Anyong is a naughty person. This time it was an incense merchant who took a fancy to this place. He wanted to do some tourism here. We bought more than half of it in the village. They found me through the higher UPS and said they wanted to buy back our land. He Anyong briefly explained the whole story. After hearing this, Mei Shui was speechless. Is it because she developed this place too well? Engage in tourism, wouldn't she do it herself if she could? Why sell the land to someone else? Is that person stupid? Or do you think they are too easy to bully? When doing business, some things are unavoidable. Anyong is capable, but there are some things that he cannot make the decision. When we arrived at the place where Anyong lived in the village, Mr. Zhang had been waiting in the courtyard for a long time. He and Ming Ming were playing there. Seeing them arriving, he immediately laughed and said, "Happy New Year." "Happy New Year to you, Grandpa Zhang." Mei Shui and Hians replied immediately. Ming Mingli followed the same example and came over. "Congratulations on getting rich, bring me the red envelope." He stretched out his back and it was really cute. Fortunately, Mei Shui was ready. He and Hians handed the red envelope to Ming Ming and touched the top of his head. Since there was business, everyone was not in a hurry to talk about old times and started talking about business immediately. After all, that person just wants to buy my current land at the same price. Mei Shui was speechless. There was someone more shameless than her. Yes, that's what the representative of their company said, and they said that this house will be our own, and the land will be leased to us and we will be able to stay there. Speaking of these words, Anyong felt very ridiculous. What's the relationship with that person? Hians was very concerned about this. That person said they were incense merchants and planned to return to China to invest, and they took a fancy to our place. Of course Anyong knew about it. Mr. Zhang put down the teacup in his hand at this time. Lao Sun asked me to bring you something. This matter has something to do with him. He can't come forward on his own. Let me remind you that that person has to deal with it well. Mr. Zhang has not been running around in vain these days. He also went to several old men to ask about this matter. But no one could answer him directly. Mei Shui and Hians both frowned. Which company has such a big influence? This puzzles them. It's not that their company is very influential, but it needs such a start. A large investment cannot be wasted. So people still have to see the benefits. This is an economic era, and everything depends on money. Mei Shui really doesn't understand the political situation and doesn't want to understand it, but now it concerns herself, and she has to adapt no matter how unwilling she is. It is impossible for her to give up this place. Since it was given to her in the first place, it belonged to her, not to mention that she had spent so much money on it. What else did Mr. Sun say? Mei Shui felt that Mr. Sun must have given him a hint. Although Mr. Sun is a little selfish sometimes, on the other hand, he is still willing to help them. From the words he asked Mr. Zhang to bring back, it can be heard that the investment matter may not have been handled by him. Otherwise, such an error would not have occurred. Mr. Zhang looked at Xiaoxiu and smiled. "You are the only one who is smart." Lao Sun said something, but he felt that Xiaoxiu did not necessarily have to do that. So he told Mei Shui and others Lao Sun's original words. "So, what do you think?" Mr. Sun's intention is to let them provide certain benefits. But will Mei Shui and the others get what he wants? To put it bluntly, they are just a small businessman now, and they still have the anti-hemorrhage prescription that Xiaopeng took out last time. These are really not enough. Meixiu also understood what Mr. Sun meant. He just wanted her to come up with something that moved her heart. Even if she had it, she wouldn't take it out, it's just a wolf-tiger medicine. In the end, you may not be able to save your family. Hians and Mei Shui looked at each other, shook their heads and laughed. Leave this matter to us. You have been keeping an eye on the village recently and don't let anyone come in and cause trouble. Not everyone in the village sold the land to them. If the incense merchant bought other land, it would be troublesome for them. I've been keeping an eye on them for a long time. They haven't done much recently, maybe because of the new year. He was not stupid. Also, I also talked to the villagers. If the villagers want to take action, they will give us priority. Watching Anyang grow up step by step, Mei Shui and Hians are very happy. Okay, keep an eye on this matter. Xiaoxiu and I will talk to the people above. Hians made a final decision and said. After finishing talking about the serious business, everyone started to talk about some interesting things. Talking about things in the village, the death of the eldest grandma, and the changes in the family of Mr. He. They didn't stop until Li Hei called for lunch. After lunch, Mei Shui and Hians went to the back mountain. Mei Shui wanted to find Xiao Bai. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 464. Chapter 464, New Discoveries in the Back Mountains. Xiaobai didn't come to see her today, which made her a little worried. When they arrived at the reservoir, they didn't see Xiaobai. Let's look for it. Hian saw Xiaoxiu's face worried and said immediately. Meixiu frowned. She called Xiaobai consciously when she came up, but Xiaobai didn't respond at all, which made her a little worried. But if she can't find Xiaobai, she can find Xiaoxian. It ignored me, Mei Shui replied, shaking her head. Then he called Xiaoxian out. After a while, a red snake appeared in the middle of the reservoir. Xiaoxian is here, let's see if he knows where Xiaobai is. Xiaoxian moved very quickly and swam to his master in less than a minute. Mei Shui knelt down and stretched out her hand. Xiaoxian climbed onto the master's arm naturally. Xiaoxian, where is Xiaobai? Can you take us to find Xiaobai? Xiaoxian has opened his spiritual intelligence, but he is not at the level of Xiaobai, and he still cannot speak human language. Xiaoxian nodded its pointed snake head and climbed directly from the owner's hand. He turned his head back in a humane manner, as if to tell them to follow it. Hians was very surprised when he saw a snake speaking so humanely for the first time. Is this snake a spirit? I didn't become a spirit, I just opened my spiritual wisdom. Mei Shui couldn't explain it clearly for a while. He can accept the space anyway, let alone this snake. I followed Xiaoxian and walked directly into the mountains. I don't know if Xiaoxian did it on purpose, but the roads he took were all unexplored. There are thorns and bushes everywhere. I don't know how far I walked, but Xiaoxian stopped. But after it stopped, Mei Shui and Hian stepped forward immediately, and Xiaoxian took them to a platform. Below is a cliff tens of meters high. At a glance, there are many bones, of course, they are animals. Xiaoxian, you said Xiaobai is down there. Looking at Xiaoxian standing on top and looking down, if it had a face, it would definitely have an embarrassed look on its face. Because it is thinking about going down. Xiaoxian nodded the snake's head to indicate that it was going down. Mei Shui was speechless, but with her and Hian's skills, climbing down a cliff of tens of meters was still a piece of cake. Let's get down there. After saying that, He put Xiao Xian in his hand and pulled Hian's with the other hand. The two of them immediately used their inner strength and jumped down the mountain. Fortunately, they have deep internal strength, otherwise we don't know what they would have been like. At the foot of the cliff, Mei Shui and Hian's held their breath. Because the smell down here is really unpleasant, the rotten smell should not be too strong. Let's go. This is no longer Bama village, and I don't know what Xiaobai is doing here. Mei Shui is a little confused. But now that Xiaobai is here, there are only two possibilities. The first is what is useful to it, and the second is what is useful to her. The place they came down was in the middle of the cliff, and it took about 10 minutes to reach the cliff exit. When they arrived here, Mei Shui and Hian's were shocked. Because, they found that this place was like another world. The trees and animals here are all different from those outside. The ones here are taller. When the two wanted to get closer, they were blocked by a barrier. I don't know if they touched the barrier, but the animals that were still wandering inside all turned to look at them as if they were facing a formidable enemy. It is true that Mei Shui likes to eat meat, but it is uncomfortable to be stared at by so much meat. Xiao Xian was anxious and walked around on the ground, not knowing what he was looking for. Soon, a white shadow flashed past, and Xiaobai's figure appeared in front of them. I don't know what it said to the animals inside, but the animals scattered in all directions. After Xiaobai came out, he jumped directly into Mei Shui's arms. "Master, you must not believe what I found here," Xiaobai Nai was excited. But no matter how excited it was, Mei Shui remained indifferent. Hian's held Xiaoxiu tightly with one hand. He knew that Xiaobai was different, but he didn't know that Xiaobai could actually speak. Xiaobai was excited there for a long time, and then realized that his master didn't respond to him, so he immediately raised his head. "Master, aren't you happy? This place is full of spiritual energy. It didn't even think that there was such a pure land in the world. Why didn't you reply to me when I called you?" Mei Shui was actually very worried about Xiaobai. Seeing that it didn't respond, she immediately came to look for it. When Xiaobai heard what his master said, his heart warmed up. He knew that his master was worried about him. "Master, there is a formation here to isolate the inside and outside," Xiaobai explained briefly. "This formation is called the isolation formation, which means it can isolate everything, including the connection between us. This was only discovered after it came in. Because after it came in, it discovered that the contract between itself and the owner could be suppressed, which meant that as long as it was here, the owner's contract with it would not be valid. Of course, if the owner also enters, the contract between them will still be established." Mei Shui was also very interested in this after hearing Xiaobai explain why he didn't respond to her. "Then can we go in?" Mei Shui really wanted to see the aura world that Xiaobai mentioned. Xiaobai was silent. "Master, actually I don't know if you can go in. How about we try? Animals can come in and out at will. If it's pleasant, it's uncertain." But it knew that getting in and out would not be that easy. Meixiu stretched out a hand, intending to touch the barrier, but before she could reach the barrier, her hand was held by a man's hand. "Let me do it." How could Hians let Xiaoxiu take risks? This kind of thing should be done by a man. Xiaobai glanced at the male host and finally nodded. It knew that it had just spoken, but the male master was not too surprised, but was very surprised. It is conceivable that the master must have told him his true identity. Well, Xiaobai thought too much, and Mei Shui completely forgot what its identity was. "One thinks it is a dog." Hian's hand quickly approached the barrier, and at this moment, the barrier moved. Yes, it moved. It actually had its own consciousness, as if it was afraid or resisting Hian's touch. It stepped back about half a meter. Before Mei Shui and Hian's could be surprised, the barrier disappeared, and the world inside also disappeared. This look really frightened the two of them. It is true that Mei Shui has experienced the apocalypse, but she has not experienced the world of immortality. How can a scene like this happen in the last days? Even the martial arts they cultivate are similar to those of ancient times in this world. They are ancient martial arts, but they just have one more kind of superpower. Most of them still focus on physical training. Xiaobai was frightened when he saw such changes. This aura world cannot disappear. If it disappears, what will happen to it? End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 465. Chapter 465, Something happened at home. It cannot really take away the owner's space to extend its own life. It is still the kind of life that cannot step out of the space. It's different here. It's an independent world with mountains, water, and other species to accompany it. Xiaobai jumped down from Mei Shui's arms and ran directly towards the disappearing barrier. But when Xiaobai got close to the disappearing barrier, the barrier appeared again. Xiaobai wore it directly. When Xiaobai entered, the whole world disappeared again. The place where it disappeared was a bottomless cliff. It can be said that this is the cliff under the cliff. As for Xiaobai, the world inside can clearly see the scene at Chu-Tiou. The master, the male master, and Xiao Xian can all see it. Xiaobai ran out from the place where he just came in without any obstruction. Seeing Xiaobai come out safely, Mei Shui felt relieved. "Xiaobai, are you okay?" She was more worried about Xiaobai than this unsolvable incident. "Master, I'm fine. This place may be against humans. I don't know which great power in ancient times set up the formation, so awesome. It's okay, we don't have to go in, as long as it's nice to you inside." Originally, Xiaobai had been worried about whether it could survive, but now it seems that God has good intentions, so he still allows these people to open up their spiritual wisdom. The animals have their own place to go. It's very good to me. It's full of spiritual energy. Maybe I'll be able to break through at some point. As long as it breaks through, its lifespan will be longer. This is a good thing, Xiaobai. You have to work hard. Mei Shui never thought of dragging it. Now that it has a better place to go, she hopes it will be better. Xiaobai, you can live here from now on. The outside world is really not suitable for it. Hearing the Lord's words, Xiaobai's dog eyes shed heartwarming tears. The place is here, and it won't run away, at least while its owner is still alive. It won't leave her. "Master, I don't want to live here now even if it's better for it." Mei Shui understood what it meant. "It doesn't matter. I won't leave Kyoto in the next few years, so don't worry about me. When I leave, I will definitely come and tell you. This place is where spirits like Xiaobai and others, the home of the beast. Those who want to open up this place must also think so, otherwise they would not prevent humans from entering." "Master, I can't bear to leave you," Xiaobai cried, and the dog burst into tears. He looked at Mei Shui and said, "Well, you're still crying, so you're not afraid of losing face." After coaxing her for a while, Mei Shui coaxed Xiaobai to stay here with peace of mind. With her current skills, she is afraid that no one in the world can defeat her, except for the country's hot weapons. Xiaobai was relieved about this, but he also asked his master to practice harder. Maybe he would be able to enter the Qi training period when the time comes, and they could be together again. Mei Shui promised very well, but it's unclear whether she will practice or not. After bidding farewell to Xiaobai, Xiao Xian was also left here by Mei Shui. Not only it, but also its family. "Let Xiao Zhang bring Xiao Hong here when the time comes. They belong here." When leaving, Mei Shui was very reluctant to leave, but she also had a smile on her face. Hians understood her thoughts. He just wanted Xiaobai and the others to feel at ease. Back on the cliff, Mei Shui couldn't help but have red eyes. "It's okay, we can visit them often in the future." Hians knew that Xiaoxiu regarded Xiaobai as a family member, and the separation made her sad, but he had to know it. "Ans, we should come here less often in the future. What if someone discovers us?" Mei Shui was worried about being discovered by outsiders. Of course Hyans understands that there are so many greedy people in the world. Okay, we won't come over if we can't come in the future. As long as she wishes, he will fulfill her wish. After leaving the mountains, what they didn't notice was that in the mountains, a golden light flashed, and a dragon-shaped figure hovered in the air and then disappeared. This steep mountain also has another name, Yanjing Mountain, which was the capital of various countries in the past. Back in the village, Mei Shui was in a bad mood. Hyans and the others did not stay in the village longer and drove directly to leave the village. After that, the affairs in the village were directly handed over to Hyans to handle. But Mei Shui didn't know what was wrong, so she directly attacked the three children. Xiao, you are the elder brother. From now on, my younger brothers will have to rely on you to protect me. From now on, I will practice for 2 more hours every day. I am not allowed to sleep at night, and I will directly practice internal skills and mental methods. Xiao Peng, you are very talented in practicing medicine. You and I have memorized this book by heart. Please memorize it word for word. After you finish memorizing it, I will teach you how to practice medicine. Looking at Xiao Peng, Mei Shui stared straight at him. However, unless absolutely necessary, the prescriptions inside must not be spread out, even if your future wife cannot get a glimpse of it. Mai Xiu's expression was very serious when she said this, which also frightened the three children who were sitting there. Mom, did something happen? Xiao Peng looked at his mother worriedly. Unexpectedly, his worries were not answered by his mother, but instead he was slapped with a stick by her. Stop talking nonsense, did you remember what I said? Mei Shui hit her child hard with the stick. This was the first time she hit her child like this. Xiao Peng did not dare to scream even after being beaten. He looked at his mother and nodded firmly. I swear he promised his mother not to tell anyone the contents. Okay, since you agreed, Mom hopes you can do it. Once you reveal it, don't blame Mom for being cruel. He is not the only son she has. She also has to think about her other 2 sons. After talking about Xiao Peng, Mei Shui took out another book from the space and handed it to Xiao Cheng. I know that you like to practice martial arts, and I also know that your medical skills are no worse than your second brother, so take this book and memorize the contents like your brother. The book in Mei Shui's hand was given to her by Xiao Baiov. It has been left in space and she has never looked at it. Because this book requires true cultivation, and she cannot do it. Xiao Cheng can do it. This is a medical and martial arts practice. You must also swear that the contents inside are not allowed to be disclosed to outsiders, not even your eldest and second brothers. Compared to the 3 of them, Xiao got the worst thing. But it depends on who you compare with. Xiao's qualifications are much worse. Xiao Cheng also followed the oath of his second brother and swore directly. Mei Shui watched the performance of the 3 people throughout the whole process, especially Xiao. She was most afraid of Xiao overthinking. However, after giving orders to the 3 of them, Mei Shui still said something to Xiao. Xiao, it's not that your parents are partial, but that something is not suitable for you. This was the only explanation she could give. Of course Xiao understands. From their martial arts training, it can be seen that among the 3 brothers, Xiao Cheng is the best, followed by Xiao Peng, and then himself. The new month has begun, everyone is voting, asking for recommendations, monthly votes, and subscriptions. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 466. Chapter 466, Betrayed and Returned to the Village. Even though I had chosen to practice a few years before them, they could easily catch up with me. At the beginning, he may have thought about why this happened, whether his mother gave good things to his brothers. But when he discovered that they actually practiced the same things, Xiao regretted thinking about his mother like that. Mom, don't worry, I won't think about it. Xiao knew very well that everything he got now was given by his parents. Perhaps he can see far more when he stands high, and he can see far more than some of his peers. He also knows more than them, even adults and those with high status, he also knows more than them. Some people will please someone because of their identity or status, but he will not. In his eyes, these external things are not important. The most important thing is his own strength, and his ability and strength mean that he is arrogant to all people. These are all given by his parents. He is not in a hurry to be grateful, so how can he blame his parents? If it weren't for you and Dad, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now. His parents have never told Xiaopeng and the others about his life experience, and of course, he doesn't intend to. He regards them as his biological brothers, and it doesn't matter what their blood origin is. That's good, but you have to learn well what I give you. Those things are also very rare. Mei Shui was worried that he would think too much and not value those things. Well, I will, and I will definitely not disappoint my parents' expectations, Xiao promised. In this way, Mei Shui taught the children at home every day, and he also contacted the incense merchant. They also knew who the person who welcomed them was, Mr. Sun's enemy. He was not worried at all about this and directly explained his intention to those people. He would not be able to sell it. If he could, he would like to buy the whole village. But of course his opinion was not agreed with by the people above. But so what? If he doesn't sell it, then the people above are still planning to buy it by force. So he broke off the relationship with the boss. Those who originally lived in the village moved out of the nursing homes in the village one by one, probably in order to make friends with the people above. This will indeed give Bama village a big blow. What is the main business of Bama village? Farming. For this reason, he didn't care about those people leaving, so he stopped renting from outsiders. Suddenly, the previously lively village suddenly became quiet, making the villagers a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, the Zhao family, the Shi family, and the Sun family were supporting He, otherwise his business would have been more difficult to carry out. These are not important. From He's point of view, he doesn't care whether there is business or not. Now if he sells all the business in his family, the money will be enough for his family to spend a lifetime. The suppression from above cannot be eliminated at will. He urgently called Xiang Yang and Xiao Lai to Kyoto. Transfer the company directly to their name, and his dividends will turn dark. As soon as Xiang Yang and Xiao Lai arrived in Kyoto, He had a big quarrel with them. After that, He was ignored by the two and directly bought out his shares. Not only that, he was betrayed by his cousins, and the name He also appeared in the eyes of those above him. Everyone praised this boy very much. He is a good boy, with good skills and worthy of training. With these 8 words, He directly replaced He. Not only that, even the old man and the others were driven out of the village by He, saying that the village would no longer rent. At the Intercontinental Hotel, He was indirectly threatened to cut off the relationship with the He family because their food was in his hands. I don't know why, but everything seems to be taken care of by He's family. Just 1 year later, the He family that had made such a splash in Kyoto came to an end. The He family could no longer stay in Kyoto, so they left Kyoto with their family. This turn of events has confused many people. For example, the Wang family. Wang Xiaoao came to see He once, but He turned him away. The He family courtyard in Kyoto is closed. The family went directly back to their hometown. In the car, the 3 Xiao brothers were quieter than the other. Grandma He felt very distressed when she saw them like this. Xiaoxiu, tell them the matter. It's not good to hide it from them. The changes in the family made them grow up one by one. The original company, the base, is now gone, and is still betrayed by the closest to those of their closest. Uncles and uncles, whoever has not watched them grow up, can change faster than the other. Mei Shui shook her head. Grandma, let's talk about it later. Mei Shui didn't want to say anything now. She never thought that one day she would be knocked back to her original form. Even though they were responsible for this situation, the anger in her heart still couldn't go away. Hyans drove the car, glanced at the depressed children, and sighed, "Don't worry, your parents won't starve you to death. The atmosphere at home is really bad." As the eldest brother, Xiao suppresses the restlessness of his younger brothers. For a few days along the way, everyone was as quiet as a stranger. Even Grandma He is not used to living like this. As they get closer to home, the emotions weighing on them are getting heavier and heavier. It's not that I can't bear to part with the prosperity. Just unwilling to give in. Because there were many old and young people on the road, it took almost 10 days to get back to Mingcheng. They didn't want to stay longer in Mingcheng and drove directly back to their hometown. As soon as we returned to the village, everyone in the village was surprised. They don't know what is going on outside, and He Anyang and Qianziang deliberately concealed it, so no one in the village knows what is happening in the He family. Third aunt, why are you back at this time? Less than half a year after leaving, third aunt and her family came back again, and everyone gave them a welcome. This time they came back just as the children were on summer vacation, and the villagers didn't think anything of it and just thought they were coming back for fun. "I'm back, I'm getting older and miss home." Grandma He got out of the car and joked with the people who came to say hello. "Come on, third aunt, you are in such good health, now is the time to enjoy your blessings." Everyone joked about Grandma He. Mei Shui and Hyans were helpless when they saw someone walking not far away. The visitors were none other than Xiao Yi's family. After they found out what Anyang had done, they all scolded Anyang half to death. But there are some things you can't say over the phone. After finally waiting for Ans and the others to arrive, He Jianbei and Xiao Yi still had to come over and ask for clarification. When the person arrived, Hyans shook his head and said, "We'll talk about it later when we get home. Let me move my things up the mountain first. I will have to live here after I come back this time. There are a lot of things." This time Hyans drove a truck. "Come back." Okay, Xiao Yi didn't believe that his brother would do such a shameless thing. So he has been waiting for an explanation. Also waiting for an answer. With subscriptions, stop posting, let the author have a good new year. Thank you all. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 467. Chapter 467, Plan. Uncle Jianbei didn't say anything. He and his wife also moved things together, and they closed the door before talking about anything. There were a lot of things, and Hyans also invited several cousins from the village to move them together, and it took him an hour to move them all. After arriving home and seeing the others off, Hyans was surrounded by Xiao Yi's family. Without outsiders, a lot of things can be said. Mei Shui pulled the children over and asked them to listen together. "Well, things are not what you think." Hyans told everyone what the superiors had done against him. Also ask everyone not to say anything outside after listening. Also, Anyang did not really betray, but he turned to the bright side, and Hyans turned to the dark side. At least for the past 3 years, he will not be able to get ahead. Who made his attitude so tough at that time? Hyans also explained to the children about Xiangyang and the others. After the children heard this, they all laughed like fools when they learned that these uncles had not really betrayed them. Not to mention that they will live in their hometown in the next few years, the 3 of them expressed their happiness. Grandma He even scolded them for being useless. After getting the answer they wanted, He Jianbei and his family breathed a sigh of relief. "It's okay if it's not, otherwise I really want to go to Kyoto and beat him to death," Aunt Yang said with an angry smile. "You, please be strict with your mouth. If I hear any rumors outside, I won't take care of you. What grandma he is most worried about is the mouth of Genbei's daughter-in-law. Third aunt, why do you look down on others? I am different now, I am strict with my mouth, Aunt Yang said with a grieved look on her face. Believe it or not, her grandma he expressed disbelief in this regard. Watching them bicker, the old feeling immediately returned, making everyone very friendly. Should I tell the other families about this? Xiao Yi asked worriedly. Mei Shui and Hians shook their heads together. No, people in the village should not care about outside affairs. If anyone asks, just say that you will stay with grandma in the village for a while. They had already thought of this excuse. What will happen if Xiao and the others go to school? Xiao Yi looked at the three happy children and asked with a worried look on his face. It's okay, just let them stay at home when the time comes, I believe they can do it. Mei Shui is still very confident in her three children. They should also be trained so that they cannot bear nothing. After seeing brother-in-law and sister-in-law make their decision, Xiao Yi said nothing more. In this way, the He family settled down in Hejia village again. As expected, many people came over and asked, how long will they stay this time? Or why did you come back to the village? Are you unable to live in the city anymore? But the old lady pushed her back. She is old and homesick. Is it wrong to want to return to her roots? So, the village became lively again. From time to time, I would hear Grandma He's voice cursing at people in the village. Everyone is very accustomed to this. However, shortly after Mei Shui and others returned to the village, He Zhenjing's family moved out of the village. No one knows where he went. Uncle Zhengting and the others didn't ask anything, and He Zhengjing and his family didn't even tell them. The small life in the village is very comfortable. The only thing that makes me feel uncomfortable is that Xiaobai is not around. Mei Shui and Hians had nothing to do, so they made an appointment to go for a walk in the mountains together every day to see if they could find anything interesting. Or encounter something interesting. Fortunately, Hejia village is surrounded by mountains. There are mountains everywhere. Except for one road out of the village, the rest of the village is surrounded by mountains. I don't know how my ancestors chose the place back then. Xiao and the others are on vacation now. If they go to school then, they can be boarded. When they arrived in Mingcheng, those people would probably stop staring at their home. In just a few months, the He family was kicked out of Kyoto. It is funny to say that there were not many people who cared about them when they left. Of course, there were not many people they were good friends with. That night, Hians and Mei Shui were lying on the bed. After their love affair, Hians held Xiaoxiu and gently stroked her back. Xiaoxiu, are you sad? He was afraid that she would feel bad. Mei Shui is a little tired. This man really wants to squeeze her dry. There's nothing to be sad about, but I'm so frustrated that it's true. Humph, if it hadn't been for the persuasion of the old man and the others, I would have killed those people, Mei Shui said fiercely. She is not a person who suffers losses. There is no such thing as righteousness. For her, it is really good to live well by herself. It is true that she has a patriotic heart, but people who came from that era have long since buried that heart deeply in the abyss. If she hadn't had a close relationship with those old men over the years, she wouldn't have run back to her hometown so frustrated. Even if she has to come back, she will come back willingly. Rather than being forced to return to his hometown. Hians understands Xiaoxiu's thoughts. He is also a person who has gone through turbulent times. In his heart, family is the most important thing. There are many things they cannot help but do, just like now. Xiaoxiu, it's me who has wronged you. With her ability, she really didn't have to make herself so miserable. It turns out it was because of him that she felt so wronged. It's not really a grievance. I'm just unwilling to accept it. But it's okay. Let's see who can survive. Humph, I can't kill you, but I can survive you. She used to think that she shouldn't be too conspicuous. It's not good to be remembered all the time. Now, hey, She is scared. Whether it is Mr. Zhao or Mr. Sun, she has secured her bail, and those people are just waiting for her revenge. I want to practice medicine, Xiaoxiu said to Hians without any head or tail. Hians was stunned for a moment, but he quickly came to his senses. Just don't go too far, he supported her. No, at least leave a way for the children to survive. With children, there are many things to consider. She is selfish, but the child was born to her in 10 months of pregnancy, and there is no way she would gamble with them. Well, just do whatever you want. We have retreated to this point. I think Grandpa Shi and the others will help us in the future, Hians comforted. His regression has fulfilled the righteousness of several old men. If they don't help, then don't blame him for being cruel. If you don't use it to protect your family, then why should you use it to learn a skill? Oh, you trust others too much, you should trust yourself more. Some people just hide it deep in their hearts, Mei Shui mocked. But it doesn't matter, as long as she is here, no one can bully her. Having a good night's sleep, early the next morning, Mei Shui went to the back mountain with Hians after finishing her chores at home. Children let themselves go in the village. They didn't need parents at all, as long as they had their uncle Xiao Yi. Let alone grandma, she is like a fish in water in the village, which is called a comfort. Although I feel a little uncomfortable in my heart, I can't resist the feeling of familiarity here. Everything is developing for the better. Ask for recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, rewards, and subscribing. Everyone is on vacation now, should also pay attention not to stay up late. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 468. Chapter 468, Training Sons. Because of the He family's concession, He Anyong took over the Bama village and sold half of the village to the incense merchant. The incense merchant acted very quickly. After all, there was someone above him, and the Bama village tourist village started construction immediately. Hong Kong merchants came to invest to make money, but they did not dare to make the relationship too tense. He Anyong was holding his breath and didn't have a good look on anyone, so many stories about him were spread. What kind of cold-bloodedness, what kind of despicable villain, etc. He doesn't care about any of this. All he wants now is to make this vegetable base bigger and stronger. Hejiakan was invested by Qianziang alone, so he took over both Shenzhen City and Kyoto. With the help of Xiao Zhang and Xiao Li, He Anyong soon began to develop externally. Mei Shui left him a lot of good things when she left, such as spiritual crystals. With this thing, the vegetable base can be opened no matter where it is. So He Anyong spent all the money from the sale on purchasing land. What I bought was some farmland in the suburbs, which was cheap and convenient. His actions were seen by everyone in the upper echelons of Kyoto, and they were quite satisfied with his actions. He also gave him a lot of green lights. He Anyong was very sarcastic when no one was around. As his wife Li Hai, of course she knew the story. She hated those above her. Don't treat businessmen like them as human beings and sacrifice them when necessary. They are human beings too, with flesh and blood, so why can't they have a good discussion? The country is so big and there are so many places, why must we rob them? The couple both held their breath and waited for their sister-in-law to come back and slap them in the face. As soon as He Anyong moved, Qianziang became anxious. He was afraid that his hotel could not keep up, and He Anyong would definitely sell it to others. This was the last thing he wanted to see. Even with Hejiakan as a guarantee, he still didn't dare to gamble with that 3 points of confidence. So he immediately took out his family wealth. If he didn't have enough, he asked his father for it. Anyway, he wanted to follow in the footsteps of He Anyong. He was still a little kid before, but now he has grown up to be on par with him, which is really shocking to him. It happened to be a time when the country was vigorously developing its economy, and their actions received great support from above. The above are not unanimous, many people still do not think highly of what these people do, and feel that they do not regard their own people as human beings. The main one is Mr. Sun's lineage. But what can be done? Mr. Sun's health is getting worse and worse. But just when he couldn't stand it any longer, he and Young went to see him. He also brought him good things. This thing is naturally a health medicine made by Mei Shui. It is also an enhanced version and has the effect of extending Mr. Sun's life. Not to say too much, it will definitely be guaranteed for 5 years. Mr. Sun is also a sensible man. After taking the medicine he and Young brought, he lay in the hospital for half a year before being discharged. He did this just to avoid causing trouble for Xiaoxiu. He begged before, but Xiaoxiu didn't give it to him. But this time, she gave him the life-extending medicine. He knew that it was for future planning. 5 years, haha, the calculation is really accurate. Mr. Sun, who had long given up hope for his health, became more and more optimistic. Mei Shui is not interested in the changes in Kyoto. After she has adapted to the village for a month, she should not enjoy the life in the village too much. Ans, let's go exploring. He is very interested in Mei Shui in the mountain behind Hejia village. Ans knew her temperament. Adventures were just for fun. The mountains around the village have been destroyed by her, and there are no large animals to play with her anymore. Take the children with you. They are not young anymore and they should also exercise their skills. There are still a few months before school starts, so it's just a good time to take them to exercise. In the past, Xiao Cheng could go to the army to practice, but now, I'm afraid he won't be able to go. Okay, let's see how they are doing in practice, and Xiao Peng, it's not enough to just read books, you also have to experience the living environment of some herbal medicines yourself. The 3 children didn't know that their parents were thinking about them. They were still thinking about going to the reservoir to play tomorrow. Hejia village also has a reservoir, which was artificially opened. It is very large, and can be said to be 3 times the size of the Bama village reservoir. You can imagine how big it is. The ecology of the reservoir is very good, and some rare fish can be seen in it. It is said that it is also because of the water source in Hejiakan that many animals in the mountains come out to move around. After having a plan, Mei Shui discussed with her grandma about going to the mountains. Grandma, he has no objection at all. Take them away quickly. I have a headache now when I look at the 3 of them. I have never seen them so skinny before. Grandma, he now has a headache for these 3 children. They go up the mountain and go into the water, and there is no quiet time. When they were in Kyoto, they could still write and draw quietly at home, but now, as long as she goes out, she will hear them going up the mountain and into the water. Sometimes she heard many people complain to her, saying that these 3 children were so naughty that they actually organized a group of children to go to the mountains and rivers in the village. Those parents were very worried. Xiaoxiu and Ans would disappear from time to time. They couldn't find anyone, so they all came to her. Angry hair is getting whiter and whiter. Looking at the disgusted look on her grandma's face, Mei Shui twitched her mouth. How naughty are these 3 children, making the wife who loves them so much feel disgusted. This trip will only take 10 days and a half. Can you handle it at home alone? Mei Shui was mainly worried about this. Grandma, he rolled her eyes at her and said, "Oh, I have lived in the village for so many years. What am I afraid of for 10.5 months? 10 or 8 years will be no problem." The old lady is really disgusted, right? 10 or 8 years, Grandma, you are willing to bear it? Mei Shui smiled. The old man's mouth is a liar. If he really wants to go away for 10 or 8 years, I'm afraid she will be the first to disagree. Stop talking nonsense and leave quickly. Really, just let me stay for a few days. Then, I'll ask Aunt Mei Lian and the others to come over and keep you company anyway. We all still live in the village, so we don't have to worry about grandma being cold and hungry. Come on, she's very busy now. There seems to be some movement in Anliang. I'm afraid her family will go to Kyoto in a few days. The old lady is very well informed. Hey, Liang is a good boy, he moves very fast. When she heard the movement from Liang, Mei Shui was also happy for him. No, I heard that the girl is pregnant, it's really amazing grandma, he said with a proud face. Meixiu is speechless. Grandma, are you too happy? And Liang, really? Forget it, I have the ability. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 469. Chapter 469, Exercise the children too. Should they get married in the village or go to Kyoto? If they go to Kyoto, I'm afraid their family won't be able to go. Since you want to hide, you should hide simply, and don't want to go to Kyoto to listen to those gossips. I don't know. I haven't heard your Aunt Mei Lian talk about this matter yet. Don't worry, the village will definitely take care of it. The family are all here. If the village doesn't take care of it, then Liang's wife won't come back. It's okay that the village can do it. If we go to Kyoto, I'm afraid we won't be able to go. Mei Shui knew that her grandma would not miss Liang's wedding, and Yang also came back when he got married. Not to mention Anshan, he directly became a Quanfu old man. She would not fail to go to Liang and the others. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later. When she mentioned Kyoto, the old lady's face turned downcast. If there are others in Milian, why don't they starve me? Knowing that Xiaoxiu was worried about herself, Grandma he patted her hand and joked. Even if they don't care about me, I still can't do it myself. It's not like she is too old and can't move. Seeing her grandma like this, Mei Shui suppressed her worries no matter how much she worried. Well, if anything happens, you can find Xiao Yi in the village. The person who reassured her the most was Xiao Yi. Okay, that boy doesn't dare to be disloyal to me, so don't worry. Go and prepare quickly. We will take him away in the evening. When people in the village ask, I will tell you that you went out to play. Does the old lady dislike it? After dinner, Mei Shui announced her intention to go into the mountains at the table, but she didn't expect it. Great, Mom, can I leave now? Then I have to bring something to repel mosquitoes, otherwise it will be inconvenient to sleep in the mountains. I can bring the dagger that Uncle Zhao gave me last time, it's very sharp. It turns out that each of the three children was more excited than the last. Mei Shui didn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. At this point, Grandma he curled her lips and said, Look, look, how long has it been? These three are like monkeys. Are they thinking about going into the mountains every day? After saying that, the old lady put down her chopsticks and stared at them. You think there is so much fun in the mountains, and one of those bigger beasts can tear you apart. She began to educate them. What the old lady knew about tigers, lions, wolves, etc., she would tell them to scare them. The people who listened were speechless and shouted in their hearts, Madam, lions and crocodiles, are you sure these things can survive here? Okay, the three of them behaved like quails and listened to the instructions. After talking for a long time, seeing them quiet down, the old lady felt a sense of accomplishment on her face. When you enter the mountain, remember to follow your parents closely. Don't get hurt. We won't be able to save you. Finally, I didn't forget to scare them. Mei Shui endured it so hard. Forget it, as long as Grandma is happy. Grandma he thought she had scared them, and was worried that they would be frightened by her, so she comforted them, don't worry, your parents are still very powerful. Well, Madam, you might as well not say this. He Ans directly blocked his mouth with rice. He was afraid that he would not be able to resist his grandma and disgrace her. After dinner, it was probably the first time for them to say goodbye like this. The three children were worried about their wife and all gathered around the old lady. Tell her how to take care of yourself and so on. In the end, he was driven away by the old lady. After they left, the old lady herself had red eyes. That's what she said, but when it really came to this point, how could she let it go? They are all her great-grandchildren who grew up with a handful of urine, so disgusting, they grew up eating and urine. In the middle of the night, Mei Shui woke up her sleeping grandma and told her about their departure. Grandma, he didn't even get out of bed, let's go, be careful on the road. As a granddaughter-in-law who knows her grandma well, Mei Shui couldn't hear the change in her voice. However, she didn't go in to comfort her. Hian saw Mei Shui coming out and immediately came over. Where's grandma? Grandma is asleep, let's go. Taking a deep breath, Mei Shui looked at the three children standing at the door of the courtyard and said. The three children felt uncomfortable, and they all looked behind her eagerly. I'm afraid they just want to wait for their wives to come out and see them off. Let's go, your wife is asleep. The movement in the yard soon became quiet. Grandma, he did not turn on the light, but walked to the window and looked at the swaying shadows on the path. Tears flowed down unconsciously. Come back safely, he whispered softly. The destination this time is very direct, which is the water source where Xiaobai went last time. Xiaobai said that that place was an underground water source, and the spiritual crystal was thrown directly into the small pool at the underground water outlet. You know, it took Xiaobai 5 or 6 days to go back and forth last time. Let alone them. So sincerity in 10 days and a half month may not be able to come back in time. The further you go into the mountains, the less roads there become. Walking between these mountains, under the moonlight, is really a bit scary. Fortunately, they are all atheists. Mom, where are we going this time? Xiao Chen was very excited as soon as he ran up. Had he not been too close to the village, he would have been unable to stop himself from screaming. Go to a good place. The spiritual crystal has been there for so many years. I'm afraid the animals around it have changed a lot, right? Mei Shui sells Guanzidao. How long do we have to go? Can't we take a car there? Xiao Chen really thought he was here for a trip. Xiao knocked Xiao Keng's head hard. He had some suspicions about this trip. He was afraid that his parents wanted to test the results of their years of practice. Do you think there is a road in this mountain? This brother is a fool. That's right, do you think this is tourism? Xiao Peng said with a look of disgust. Xiao Chen immediately covered his forehead when he was hit. The eldest brother was so bad and knew how to hit him every time. There is also the second brother, who always scolds him. Okay, don't make trouble, watch the road when it gets dark. Seeing that they were about to quarrel, Hians immediately spoke to stop them. This time I am taking you out to practice. We are going to the deep mountains. There are more large animals in the mountains. When the time comes for you to practice, you will always be unable to perform against each other. Practical combat is the most important thing. When they heard that they were here for training, the eyes of the three of them lit up. Meixiu ignored them. She was following the route Xiaobai said and leading the way. This walk lasted several days. I am on the road every day, and the animals I encounter on the road are all small ones, and the largest one is the wild boar. After the wild boars on Wild Boar Mountain were driven away, they all went deep into the mountains. It was a bit difficult for the three of them to fight at first, but later on, it became easier and smoother. Meixiu took them away from the wild boar gathering place. The wild boar could not be brought into the space in front of the children, so Mei Shui did not let them kill the wild boar, just wound it. Remember to vote. Comparison. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 470. Chapter 470, Training Children 03. You can raise an injured wild boar back, but if it dies, they can't take it away, which is very troublesome. Walking in the deep mountains is very difficult. Even so, everyone in Mei Shui's group had smiles on their faces. Brother, I won this time. You have to give me half a year's pocket money after you go back. Xiao Cheng was very happy. Xiao Cheng made the most progress this time against the wild boar. Xiao Peng and the others have also made progress, but Xiao Peng puts more thought on the medicinal herbs. There is plenty of fighting, but he spends more time looking for medicinal herbs in the surroundings. 3 of them all studied medicine, but the one who studied better was Xiao Peng. For Xiao Cheng and Xiao Yu, they prefer simple fighting and killing. So the two started betting directly during training. Mei Shui and Hians had no objections to this at all, and instead became witnesses. What do you do with so much pocket money? Xiao has never been able to figure this out. He has no shortage of food and supplies, and unlike Xiao Peng who needs to buy herbs, where does his money go? Who thinks it's too much money? Anyway, I don't care, I agreed to give you half a year's pocket money. Xiao Cheng pretended to be stupid. Seeing him like this, Xiao Peng rolled his eyes at him angrily. Brother, he still wants to support a wife. You know, Xiaofu is a medicine guru. She is very meticulous about food and drink. How can he spend the little money he has? Xiao Peng really couldn't stand it anymore. Mom and Dad, you don't care, this kid is almost becoming someone else's stupid son. No matter. Mei Shui shook her head, he can find a wife based on his ability. If you have the ability, you can also find one for me. This is great, she doesn't have to worry about it. Xiao and Xiao Peng rolled their eyes after hearing what their mother said. Mom, how old is he? Is it too early to marry a wife? Speaking of daughter-in-law, Mei Shui still remembers that her grandma loved a little girl very much. It is said that both appearance and temperament are very suitable for Xiao. Mei Shui stared at Xiao for a while, which made Xiao tremble. Xiao, do you know that your wife has found a wife for you a long time ago? Mei Shui rarely had the interest to tease her sons. Hian sat next to Mei Shui and watched her teasing Xiao. When Xiao looked over, he did not forget to testify for his wife and nodded. Who? Xiao Peng became interested. Xiao Cheng also looked at his mother eagerly. Mei Shui smiled and said, your uncle Shi's niece is Hua. She also liked that little girl. Han temperament can be noisy or quiet, not to mention appearance. It is true that Xiangguo produces beauties. Let's not say that he is better than Xiao, but the two of them stand together and there is no difference in victory or defeat. Xiao was speechless when he heard his mother's words. Mrs, are you thinking too much? He didn't even say a few words to that person. Is it okay if you're not familiar with it? Looking at Xiao's serious face, Mei Shui wanted him to break the knot. I didn't think too much about it. I also plan to go to Hua's house to propose marriage after you take the college entrance examination. Mom also likes it very much. I am really not afraid of cheating my own son to death. Mom, take me with you when the time comes. I want to see my sister-in-law. Xiao Cheng was excited. What are you looking at? Go home and see your Xiaofu. Xiao Yu was annoyed and pushed Xiao Cheng away, who was making noises. Mom, are you serious about coming? Xiao looked at her mother nervously. Hian spoke up at this time. It's true, the girls from the Hua family are very good. Anyway, with your temperament, let alone finding a wife, it would be difficult for you to get married to a woman, right? He could understand his son's indifference, and it was somewhat affected by what happened to the Cheng family back then. The Hua girl was also something he didn't reject because of the historian's reasons. If he were really a stranger, I'm afraid. Dad, I'm only 14 years old. Xiao was helpless. It's not too young. Let's make an appointment first. It won't be too late to get married after you graduate from college. In fact, Hians was just teasing him. What they didn't expect was that Xiao would actually take this matter seriously. Of course, he finally got the beauty in his arms, but the process was a bit unpleasant. Of course, this is something to talk about later. At present, Xiao still doesn't know what he will become like in the future. Now he is filled with rejection. "Dad, are you serious about coming?" Xiao was excited, but he didn't want to say, "Really, I'm still young, can we talk about this later?" Meixue glared at Xiao, come on, we'll talk about it later. This matter is decided by your wife. If you have the ability, go talk to your wife. Hey, you brat, I can't make you better." In this way, Xiao was forced to accept the fact that he had a fiancée. Well, actually, he is not opposed to that flower thing, but he is not very familiar with it. "Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Eat something and go to rest quickly. We have to rush tomorrow morning." Seeing her son's low mood, Mei Shui snickered and said, "Of course, she won't really get him engaged. It depends on whether they have such a fate in the future. If there is, then they will be together eventually. If they have no predestined relationship and are tied together like this, it will not be good for them, but harm them. Now that Huajia is an agent for her Yujiao's beauty products, it's better not to make many things too complicated." But Xiao is still young and he doesn't understand. In his heart, his mother will never lie to him. So, that flower will be his daughter-in-law, his wife from now on. After 5 or 6 days, they finally arrived at the waterhole Xiaobai mentioned. The road was not smooth. The closer you get here, the more ferocious beasts there are. From the beginning, the three of them could resist slowly, but as they got to the back, they became increasingly unable to suppress the large animals. Those animals seem to have intelligence, and they are all very smart. For this reason, both Xiaopeng and Xiao were injured. Xiao Chen was not injured, but he had not won a few battles. Mei Shui and Hian stopped them. They were the ones leading the way and led them directly to the waterhole. Arrived here, Mei Shui immediately took out a piece of spiritual crystal and threw it into the pool without saying a word. At this moment, a blood-white wolf came out. It stared at Mei Shui fiercely, its brows furrowed, and it was on guard. It seems that it is respected here. Mei Shui also looked at it. "I know you have activated your spiritual wisdom. I want you to recognize that thing just now. I also put the piece here." Before Mei Shui knew that the wolf would definitely understand what she said. Hians has had the experience of Xiaobai, so he knows what Xiaoxiu is doing. But even if he knew it, he was still very defensive and protected his wife and children. Xiao and Xiaopeng didn't understand why their mother was talking to a wolf, but they also knew that this was not the time for them to speak. The whole body was tense. Seeing more and more wild beasts around them, the sweat on the heads of the three of them was soaked through the clothes on their heads. The white wolf didn't believe it, but that didn't stop him from knowing it was a good thing. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 471. Chapter 471, Training Children 04. Seeing that it was looking fiercely at her, Mei Shui glanced behind her and became unhappy. "It seems you don't believe it anymore, huh? Then I'll take the things here." After speaking, he waved his hand and directly took the 2 spiritual crystals under the water into the space. As soon as the spiritual energy died, the animals immediately noticed it, and the white wolf immediately pounced on it. Mei Shui is not a vegetarian either. She recalled that when she and Xiaobai met for the first time, they started fighting each other. Beat it until it is submissive. Of course, Xiaobai has never beaten it before. She just put it into the space directly. But the white wolf in front of me cannot be compared with Xiaobai. So, she is not afraid. As soon as Mei Shui moved, Hians and the 4 of them immediately started moving too. The surrounding wild animals all listened to the signal from the white wolf, and when they saw it moving, they immediately started moving. It is not an easy task for 5 people, 2 big and 1 small, to directly fight against dozens of ferocious beasts around them. Originally, Hians wanted to deal with the white wolf himself, but Mei Shui refused, because she still had to take care of the children, so it was best for her to take action. This is where the white wolf wakes up the earliest, so its movements are not worse than humans at all, but more ferocious. Mei Shui and it were fighting, and they were able to find a tie at the beginning, so the two of them did their part. But as we get to the back, after some of Mei Shui's moves come out, the white wolf is clearly outmatched. It opened its mouth and whined into the air. No, it's summoning wolves. Ans, please watch the children, Mei Shui shouted immediately after seeing the white wolf's movements. Okay, be careful. She had killed many strange beasts and zombies in her previous life, so she was not afraid of this white wolf who was just smart. White wolves don't have special powers like strange beasts. After being forced out of the means that had been silenced for many years, Mei Shui only felt refreshed throughout her body. One can imagine how long she has been suppressed. Because of some battle experience, Mei Shui overwhelmingly defeated the white wolf in just a few rounds and trampled it underfoot. At this time, there was movement in the forest. No need to think about it, it must be a pack of wolves. After a while, many wolves came from all directions, including gray, black, yellow, white, and many with mixed hair. Looking at these wolves, Xiao and the three of them were a little frightened. Dad, what should I do? They stopped attacking them before and all joined the wolf group. Surround them in a zigzag shape. Mei Shui stepped hard and said, let them move away, or I'm not sure if I will just step on your head. It was fierce, huh, she was not afraid. Looking at her movements, the wolves nearby howled. Mei Suihuan looked around. I didn't expect that this place would become a gathering place for wolves, and we get along well with these animals. It seems that your contribution is not small. Mei Shui knows how difficult it is for these animals to live in peace. The animal world is not like humans, who can talk about everything. They follow their instinct and kill their enemies. Even if they are their own tribesmen, they will eat them directly if they are not alive. Scenes like this are indeed rare. The white wolf whined twice, and the wolves took a few steps further. Mei Shui was happy. Okay, you are not afraid of death. In this case, I will help you. Mei Shui's whole body power exploded. The clothes on my body are not windy. The trees not far away from her were also broken one by one. If you want to die, I will make it happen for you. After saying that, Mei Shui's feet exploded with full strength. Perhaps his life was threatened, and tears of reluctance flowed from Bai Lang's eyes. It finally opened up the spiritual wisdom, but I didn't expect that the time would be so short. Just when it is ready to die. The wolves are on the move. No, it should be said that they all knelt down. When Hian saw this, he immediately shouted to Mei Shui, don't kill it. It is rare for an animal to be so spiritual and grateful. As soon as Hian's barked, Mei Shui immediately stopped moving. Of course, she also saw the movements of all the wolves. My mouth twitched, it was the first time I saw such a scene. Submit or die, but she knew the movements too well. Once she let go, she might be killed, so she couldn't let go. The white wolf was unmoved and simply closed his eyes. Seeing it like this, Mei Shui didn't understand. Heh, you are quite brave, but I don't know how long you can hold on, Mei Shui said with a bad taste. Carrying the children on his back, he took out a large piece of spiritual crystal directly from the space, which was full of spiritual energy. Don't you really like this thing? As long as you are sincerely convinced, you can have as much of this thing as you want. She couldn't absorb the aura now, and it was useless to hold it. It would be better to exchange it for a sincere white wolf. As soon as the white wolf smelled the smell, he immediately opened his eyes. When he saw what was in front of him, he struggled. But after a moment, it closed its eyes. Mei Shui did not lose the struggling look in her eyes, and took out a large piece of spiritual crystal from the space. Forget it, since you don't want it, then it's the same thing if I kill you and find another wolf to train. He said it very casually. White Wolf was no longer calm now. Because this aura is so powerful, you can directly take it to another big step. Whimpering twice, the White Wolf wanted to stand up from the ground. Unfortunately, Mei Shui's feet were still on its head. If you are sincere, just blink twice. She would not leave a way out for herself. What should I do if I am tricked? Don't underestimate the minds of these intelligent animals. But no worse than humans. White Wolf blinked twice, agreeing with her statement. Without saying a word, Mei Shui directly used the oldest contract method of identifying the owner by dripping blood, took out a drop of blood from the eyebrow, and dripped it into the White Wolf's forehead. Muttering some incomprehensible words in his mouth. There was a flash of red light, and the drop of blood melted into the White Wolf's forehead. A connection was established between the two. Master, please relax your feet quickly, my face is ruined, my little white face. Bai Lang's voice was full of grievance and a hint of coquettishness. However, why are you a woman? Mei Shui was speechless and let go of her feet. She had no choice but to be frightened by a little female voice. I am originally a female, Bai Lang said with an aggrieved look. Okay, I understand. Mei Shui felt a little embarrassed. Xiaobai is the voice of a child, but it says it is male. Master, can you give me this spiritual crystal? The White Wolf was very greedy. Okay, I'll give it to you. Mei Shui didn't care about this thing. She couldn't use it anyway. Besides, the spiritual spring could be regenerated, so she wasn't afraid that it would be gone in the future. Hand 2 large pieces of spiritual crystal to the White Wolf. It opened its mouth and swallowed the 2 pieces of spiritual crystal. Meixiu was worried. Aren't you afraid of eating up your stomach? Is this a stone? This wolf is really big-hearted. Don't be afraid, I can absorb it. After saying this, Bai Lang licked the corner of his mouth with a look of aftertaste. The votes are moving, the subscriptions are moving, but no one is reading the book now. Is this book so ugly? Alas, I'm almost out of motivation. End of this chapter.